live now so that we can.
I have no makeup on. I got my glasses. I'm trying to. Oh God.
I'll make myself look stupid too here.
Don't look stupid at all.
So yeah, we have a lot of connections in common. This lady here and me. This is the amazing Vanessa Hollingshead. She's on Comic Spot. You know why? Because Comic Spot is where the Army veteran, gets to vet out veterans of comedy. And she's a veteran of comedy, you guys. She's been doing it for freaking ever. She's funny as, oh my God, go watch her videos. She helps people. She's even helped me with some ideas on comedy that made me a lot more confident on stage. Yeah, I'm not afraid to say it. She's done comedy for the troops. Jerry Seinfeld said she's got what it takes. Let's go through this resume, Vanessa. Holy Toledo. Vanessa Hollingshead, welcome to Comic Spot.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for helping me get on Zoom because I leave a lot to be desired, but thank you.
You're welcome. Tell me what it feels like to have Jerry Seinfeld. Freaking Jerry Seinfeld says you got what it takes. What the hell kind of feeling you must have had?
I was blown away.
Wow.
I was waiting for him to say, I was like, yeah, it's good. You know, it's good. I'd maybe add a comma, pause, and none of that.
Oh my gosh.
It was a great feeling.
Holy Toledo.
And it was like, but I don't think anything can compare to when I was working at the Comedy Store and I couldn't get arrested, and someone stuck me on this Jewish Purim show, and they said, "Wait a second, what's your last name?" And I said, "It's Hollingshead," and they're like, "Well, you better change it fast." And I said, "Okay, Hollingstein, bring me up as Hollingstein," and I just wanted. And Mitzi, oh God, what the hell? Mitzi Shore ran this like special, like, you know, Hasidic thing. And I had to do this Purim show. And I was just grateful for the stage time. And I did really well. And Mitzi Shore brought me back. And there I was at the Comedy Store. And, I could never get stage time. I'm like, can I do a spot? I'm from New York, you know, headline. No, well, you're not in New York, you're in LA. And I'm like, all right. And then this happened day in and day out. And then they said Richard Pryor was getting ready to open, and I became the sacrificial lamb. But because I lived in an all Black neighborhood, I already had Black jokes, which no one expected. So I opened for so I ended up opening for Richard Pryor. And I did a joke about growing up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn in the 70s, and brought the house down. He came up, they're playing Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, and they're holding him up in a wheelchair. And then I'm watching this, and he says, and then his bodyguard, you know, has me come to him, and Richard Pryor said, "You're exceptional. You're really, really good." And then this was before cell phones and texts, and I'll never forget going down the Sunset Strip, and there it was right on the awning. Vanessa Hollingshead, Richard Pryor, and it will always just be burned in my mind. But to me, that was what made me think I'm going to be okay, even if LA doesn't get me, even if New York doesn't get me. Between Carlin and Pryor that were my hugest influences. I'm like, and then I opened for Pryor. I mean, I had to bring up George Carlin when I was doing comedy no longer than 6 months. And I'll never forget, I was at the Improv that was run by, oh God. So,
she's been working really hard all day, guys. Go easy on her.
Yeah, 12 hours writing.
Yeah.
Friedman.
Bud Friedman.
No, Bud Friedman ran all the improvs, and his wife ran one improv in New York City on 44th Street. And George Carlin was there, and there was like 20 people in the audience, and I was hosting, and I hadn't been doing comedy more than, you know, maybe 6-8 months. and this is like seeing my idol. This was like seeing Al Pacino, you know.
Yes.
And I'm looking at him. I said, listen, I'm Mr. Carlin, I'm very sorry that there's only, 20 people. And I'll never forget, he goes, oh, I don't care about that. I just need to hear how my words sound. That's all I need to hear is how the words sound, because I know when a joke is good. And I remember thinking, God, I would give anything to be that good, that I just needed an audience to make sure my words sounded okay. And then right after George Carlin got off stage, Dom Irera followed him. And Dom Irera said, yeah, thank you, George, for stealing all my material. It was just so funny. And I felt like I was with greatness. And then it was so funny, maybe about 24 years later, because I'm now doing comedy 28 years, minus the 4 months of forced retirement due to COVID. I'd never gone more than 2 weeks in the 28 years I've been doing comedy. I've never gone more than 2 weeks. I was so afraid I'd lose my something. I will never forget. It was like 24, 25 years, and it was a small audience. And someone said to me, Vanessa, I'm sorry. Because now people knew who I was. And they're like, really sorry. I'm so late to doing the show. There's not a lot of people. I really apologize. And I remember saying, that's okay. I just need to hear how my jokes sound and make sure the words are all right. And it was one of those, those moments,
Wow. What makes you so frickin' funny? Where did you learn what you do on stage? I've never seen anybody like you that goes for the gusto in every way. The stuff you do on stage empowers me to feel like, okay, maybe someday I'll be at that level. I'm not kidding you. You're such an inspiration. What made you this funny? People, you guys have to watch Vanessa. You do act out superbly. You do all kinds of characters and voices and funny stuff all along. You pulling everything out of your hat. How do you do it? Where did you learn this? Not at an open mic.
I never planned on being a comedian. I always wanted to be an actress. I was trained at Lee Strasberg Theatrical Institute and trained at Michael Moriarty's to study Shakespeare. I had studied Shakespearean acting. And I remember thinking, God, can he shorten his, I couldn't say it. I'm like, can he make this shorten? Can he shorten this? If you prick me, do I not? If you prick me, do I not bleed? I'm like, all right. And we keep going on and on. I used to sit there thinking, but I couldn't say anything because it's like, do you not like Shakespeare? But I used to, at a really early age, I just used to just watch people. And, it's probably because of the way I grew up. There was a lot of sad, like if you talk to every comedian, there was a lot of sadness. I was in and out of foster homes. I was put up for adoption. I had a crazy mom. I had an alcoholic father that abandoned me. And I always just felt like I'll never forget seeing Streetcar Named Desire. It's like, I've always been dependent upon the kindness of strangers. And I was like, yeah, and that would be me too. Like it was the kindness of strangers. So I always felt, I never trusted love. Love always hurt me. Being needed made me feel safe, and being loved by strangers was the ultimate in knowing that I'd be all right. So it was always the audience that gave me probably the closest thing I knew as love. So that was probably why, and everything I did. And, when before I got involved with Lucian Holt, who was the artistic director of the comic strip and was soon to be my husband, he put me through the ringer passing me. And then he said, he goes, I've never seen a comedian that I watch working girls just respond, women that have to work. And he goes, you appeal to the working class. And it was always the marginalized, the disfranchised, the misunderstood. the addicts, the alcoholics, the lost, the divorced, the lonely, the sad, the not perfect were always the ones that I thought, can I take away their pain for like, a half hour? Because they always took away mine. So that was it was happening at an unconscious level because there was another part of me that never felt enough. So if I was larger than life, no one would ever know how small I actually felt. And that's kind of what made me tick, you always think like, no, I had a great, because Lucian always thought that stuff you said about your hippie parents and your father doing drugs and your mother being crazy, that's your act, isn't it? I said, no, that's true. He's like, but you seem so, put to, so just so an ordinary, like just so together. And I'm like, it's no. And that was the beginning of him looking at me differently. And he became like a father figure for me. So when we fell in love, it was literally like Professor Higgins and Eliza Doolittle. So I was always trying to win his affection, and I already had his affection. I just never knew how much he loved me. So that was always what was to make me tick, just getting that audience to love me. And if there would be 100 people that loved me, it'd be the one person that I would see back there that would be staring or talking to a friend. That would be the one that I would focus on. And I learned slowly, focus on the people that love you. Focus where it's warm. Stop focusing where they don't get you, or they don't care, or they're too drunk, or they don't even like women. So those are the lessons I learned slowly. But that's kind of what made me the comic I am today. And I was relentless. I did comedy 7 nights a week, I lived, breathed, and ate comedy to the exclusion of not even having relationships, and to the exclusion of, unfortunately, having a miscarriage on my way to do a gig. I speeded. I had to do the University of Syracuse, and I was 8 weeks pregnant, and I took the wrong exit because I had no sense of direction. So I was heading towards Montreal, and I had to get to the University of Syracuse, and I was on like I-94. I turned around. I had 10 minutes to make the show. I did the show. It was at 10 o'clock. Thank God. I had 10 minutes to get there. There was all these students. And then after the show, I just felt nauseous. And I remember they put me in like a dorm room. And I remember being so sick. And I remember thinking, I lost the baby. I made comedy more important. And sure enough, that's what happened. And it was my mom that was very comforting. And she said, a child is very selfish, and maybe in God's finite wisdom, infinite wisdom, he knew that you were supposed to love a lot of people instead of one. And she was nuts. I'm like, how is this crazy woman that would smoke pot and wear her bra over a dress so comforting? But it's those moments you call mom. Mom, this hurts. And she was very, very comforting. But that was when after I lost the baby, I thought I got to do something life affirming, and a call came in. Would you like to perform for the troops in the Middle East? And I'm like, oh yeah. Oh my God, yes. And I went to the Middle East.
What was that like for you?
That was the most amazing experience I was so blown away by the bravery of all these young guys and girls, beautiful people, just beautiful young people, knowing, like I knew, I'm like, some of them aren't coming back. They think they're coming back, but they're not. And I knew it, and the sergeants knew it, and the colonels knew it, and the generals knew it. We all knew it, but they were so kind and respectful and good. And it would be like 100. We were there for a month. We went to 7 cities, and we'd be performing in 130 degrees. And I remember this one colonel said, if you pee and it's yellow, you ain't drinking enough water. So make sure it's clear. Make sure whatever you do when you pee, it's clear. So, and we were just like, And I remember like performing outside, and it was always be at we're going to be in an undisclosed location just in case. So. But it was like, it would be afterwards, we'd see this magnificent sunset, like something out of the Bible. And we'd all be sitting there, like all the comedians, and these young guys and girls, like no older than 20 or 21, would say, can I have your autograph?
Oh my gosh.
And I would, write it. And I would just think, I should have your autograph and just thank you. So, and it was the only time when I got back I was newly married. And I remember calling my husband, newlywed, and saying, listen, I just want you to know I love you. And there'd be like bombs flying everywhere, bombs and guys with the military thing. And he's like, this was solution. This is how he was like. He was like, yes, honey. It's nice to hear from you, but I'm right in the middle of a golf game. And I remember, it was everything to say, you know what? I'm surrounded by some of the most gorgeous looking young guys, old guys, every kind of guy. I would have no problem. And I just, like, golf is more important than me. All right. Okay. But I remember that was the only time, every time I would talk to my mom about my comedy, she'd be like, so how's your mimicking doing? And I said, oh, career. When I told her I was performing for the troops in the Middle East, it was the first time she said, I'm proud of you in all the years. So.
Oh my God. You're the best. Yeah. When I went up on stage last night in Boulder City, down here south of Vegas, where I live now. And for me, I killed. For the real world, I did good. I kept them laughing the whole time. But the whole time I'm up there, I'm thinking, what would Vanessa do? How would Vanessa really bring it out? What more could I do? And even though I don't have that figured out yet, you've given me the power to go beyond my walls that I've got, that I don't even know I've got yet, and how to get rid of them. So I know there's hope out there that I can go even further on stage because of you. That's exactly what you've done.
You feel so good. It's always like, the one thing I learned is the art of storytelling, making things personal, and animating things. Like, I'll never forget, I got put in a box, and I remember this was the most important thing that happened to me as a comedian when I first started out. I got told, you need to be set a punch. Just hold the mic, set a punch. Not a talking head. You want to do the talk shows, you got to be in a box. And I'll never forget, I'm doing an open mic. I'm working as a, word processor. I'm having a horrible day. I walk up on stage and I'm like, this fucking guy goes, this means hold my calls. This means take a message. So I'm like, all right. I'm like, yeah, hold my call. I'm like, does he think I'm an idiot? So I'm like, this means I won't be coming in tomorrow. And I walked, and I'm like, I was so, and all the comedians that were waiting to go up, they looked at me and they started laughing. And I'm like, it's emotion behind words and passion. It's not, did you hear about these two guys? It's like, it's not that set up punch. And I realized emotion plus passion with, some good writing. And even if your writing is not good, just sell that stuff. Just sell it. Just go, I couldn't believe what happened. So I realized, like, okay, if I don't get the writing right, at least I'll act it out with all my acting training. So that's what I did. And it was like, fake it till you make it kind of thing. So,
and you've got it all now. And you were on Showtime's Women of a Certain Age, with the host being one of the funniest ladies, Fran Drescher, from the Nanny. You got to be on with her. Oh, what was that like?
Oh, she was so sweet. There was something really genteel and ladylike about her. Just, and very, you know, there was just a softness about her. She seems a little rough and from Queen, like a Queen's girl on the Nanny. But when she was watching all the comedians and watching the show and being very, very gentle. She just had a beautiful energy about her. And of course, I had to Google her and find out all about her life. And she didn't have an easy life either. But,
Really?
you know, yeah, but she was the one that came up with the Nanny idea when someone told her to look after an English girl in London. And she came up with the idea of the Nanny. And they put that show together.
Wow.
She was a pretty smart girl, smart woman.
Of all the things you've done, as a closing question, I'd love to know, what's the craziest thing you ever saw go down in a club you'll never forget? Like the moment when something really went awry on stage, backstage, and you don't have to say who was involved or what club, just crazy heckler, something dangerous, something where...
I once had the worst night of my life. I was at Dangerfields, and one act was running late, Artie Fuqua, and I was at Dangerfields, and the audience, half the audience starts heckling me, and the other half is like supporting me. And I start to feel like there's a thing that happens when you're bombing, and it's called flop sweat, and it's this cold sweat that drips down, and your mind is going like this to like deal with the hecklers and then to thank the people that are listening. And Artie was running so late, and I ended up holding my own for about 45 minutes. And when I got off stage, I wanted like a double something. I just wanted to drink, and I had stopped drinking. So I remember having like 2 hamburgers in a row and recovering. And I was so angry because, you know, the wait staff just watched. They watched me like they were almost, there was some kind of pleasure in it. And I never felt so alone in my life, but I never felt what I was actually capable of. I thought, you know what? If this ever happens again, if I've got 50 people heckling me and 50 people supporting me, and I can hold my own for 45 minutes and not get off stage, I just like kind of grew exponentially in terms of my craft and in terms of not letting the bastards get you down. And I never, in my entire years of being a comedian, I never didn't do my time because someone hurt my feelings or heckled me. I never said, you know what, I don't need this. I never got off stage. I always thought about Jake LaMotta, who said no one would ever get him down. Jake LaMotta never went down. And I thought, comedy is like boxing, and I will never let anyone get me down. And I thought the greatest asset you could do as a comic when you're being heckled, when they hate you, is to smile and to never let them see that you're dying inside, that you're thinking fast, that you can't, you know, defend yourself. You will always have the upper hand when you never let them know that they got to you. What you do after when you get off stage is your business, whether you have a double martini or a hamburger or a pint of Haagen-Dazs, or you cry in your sleep, or it's irrelevant. But you always will win if they never know that they ever got to you. And when you see that light and you do your time, you're like, they never knocked me down.
Wow. That's incredible. That's the way you're a winner in the business. No wonder you're so strong. You just never stopped.
No, and you just never let them know they got to you. It's just comedy. I remember someone said, Vanessa, we're telling jokes. We're not doing eye surgery. We're telling jokes. You got that? Don't sweat it.
And now you're writing. You're doing all kinds of, you know, like you've probably been writing for a long time, but today you've been doing heavy writing and editing for 12 hours. What's that feel?
From 2 years. We've been doing this for almost 2 years.
Jeez. Well, God bless you. And thank you so much for doing comedy for the troops. Of course, you won my heart over for that. And everybody thinks the world of you, and your credits stand for themselves. And thanks for coming on to Comic Spot, Vanessa Hollingshead.
Thank you so much. I had a great, it was great. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you. Have a great night. And thanks for
Thank
serving
you
the
for
troops.
helping me get me onto Zoom and everything. Yeah, I would do it again in a second. I would do it
Come
again.
back anytime. Anytime you
Yeah.
want to plug something, you come back on.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Love you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.